We're going to sing one stanza of 361, Whiter Than Snow. First stanza. Lord Jesus, I long to be perfectly whole. I want thee forever to live in my soul. Break down every idol, cast out every foe. Now wash me and I shall be whiter than snow. Whiter than snow, yes, whiter than snow. Now wash me and I shall be whiter than snow. Okay, you may be seated. And we're going to be doing the same format that we did last week. But we covered 8 chapters last week, and we've got 29 to do tonight. So the Reader's Digest condensed version has got to get really condensed. So I'm going to focus on just a few things as we go along. But we left off when David had some interactions with Nabal and Abigail. And what I wanted to point out, Nabal was the Bible calls him a churlish man. And David was on his way to kill him and the rest of his family. And Abigail, a wise woman, interceded because Nabal did not want to help David out after David had been guarding over the guys that were watching his sheep and keeping them safe. And he said, and Nabal was just coming into some money, and David said, well, now's a good time. You can help us out. And he said, nah, not my problem. Somebody said that last week. Anyways, Abigail put together a whole lot of stuff and sent it and came to David and said, nobody told me. So I'm here to help fix it. And she fixed it. And what I wanted to get to and what I wanted to point out about this whole thing was Nabal was having a feast at the end of all of his shearing and all the other stuff. And he was drunk and slept it off. So his wife wasn't going to tell him until the next day. She told him the next day, he had a heart attack and died. But what I wanted to point out was David thanked God for sending Abigail to stop him from murdering Nabal. David was thankful to God because God interceded and stopped him from doing something he shouldn't have done. Has that ever happened to you? Where God has stopped you from doing something that you would have regretted later? Now, I know that's happened to me, and I can give you examples, but we don't have time. So, we're going to press on. Let's see. That was 1 Samuel 25, 1 Samuel 26. David spares Saul again. This time, Saul's out with the army, and they're camping out. And does anybody know what happens this time? What do you remember? Does anybody know? How did it come about? He was sleeping in the camp. Yeah, Abner's there. I think it's Abner's there. They're sleeping in the camp. The whole army's asleep. And David says, "Who wants to go with me down to the camp?" Now David's got 400 guys or whatever. And he's asking for 1 or 2 guys to go with him. And, Saul's got the whole Israeli army, thousands of guys, whatever. And he's going to go down to the camp. And I can't remember the name of the guy that went with him. I think it started with an A. But anyway, he gets somebody to go down with him. And they go down there, and they get right to Saul. and he takes Saul's spear and his water, and then they leave. and then he chides Abner, says, Abner, you're not doing a very good job, dude. You're supposed to be taking care of the king, and look, where's his spear? Where's his water? And so, Saul says, David, my son, come back, and all this, whatever. Like he did the last time too. But that didn't happen. David did not go back. And actually, that's the last time that Saul is going to chase David, because in the next chapter, which is 27, David flees to the Philistines, and Saul just says, well, I'm not going after him there. He's hanging out with the Philistines, forget it. And so the next chapter, in that same chapter, 27, he gets in with Achish, one of the Philistine kings, and David says, I don't want to live in the royal city. I'm an Israeli. You guys don't want me here. Give me someplace else to live. And so Achish gives him Ziklag. That's the name of the town, Ziklag. Okay. And in the next, the next chapter hasn't got a lot to do with David. That's more Saul and the medium at Endor. Y'all know that scenario. Saul, the Spirit of God is no longer with him. He goes to consult the medium, and he's outlawed mediums. And this medium figures out that he's Saul. And he says, but Saul says, sure, he's not going to kill her and all this good stuff. And he calls, he wants to call on Samuel and ask Samuel, because God's not talking to me anymore. So he wants to ask Samuel. And Samuel says, you're done. All right. So in the next chapter, the Philistines are going to war against the Israelis. David was going to go with them. They don't want him. That was that. And then 1 Samuel chapter 30, the Amalekites take Ziklag while David was gone. And they capture David's wives. And then David goes after him and gets them back. That's chapter 30. Chapter 31 is the death of Saul. Anybody remember how Saul died? What's that? Yeah, he fell on a sword. Well, yeah, he was hit by an arrow, but it didn't kill him in a battle. And he didn't want the Philistines to get a hold of him, so he asked his armor bearer to finish him off, because he didn't want to, again, fall into their hands, and you'll see in a minute why. But the armor bearer says, no way, man. So he falls on his own sword. And that's the end of Saul. Then 2 Samuel chapter 1. David hears about the death of Saul. And a guy, an Amalekite, comes to where David is, and he tells him about Saul and Jonathan's deaths, okay? And if we took the time to look at the account, Saul fell on his sword. This guy tells David Saul pleaded with him to kill him, so he killed Saul. And he brought back Saul's crown or something like that. Okay, so he was obviously around there because he got a hold of the crown. So he had evidence there. So David took him to be true to his word and had him killed. Not what he was expecting. I'm sure he was expecting him to get some kind of reward from David because he killed Saul, the guy that's been chasing around all this time. But that didn't happen. He said, he took it upon yourself to touch the Lord's anointed. So David, even after Saul is dead, calls him the Lord's anointed and kills the guy that claimed that he killed Saul. And that's the end of that guy. And then, let's see, 2 Samuel chapter 2. That's when David becomes anointed the king of Judah. Okay? So, anybody know what happens in Israel? Huh? Yeah, not everybody's for David. So they choose one of Saul's sons, a guy by the name of Ishbosheth, one of the ones that wasn't killed in the battle. And Abner helped set up, Abner was the Saul's captain of the host, if you like. He was the military leader. And he helped set up Ishbosheth as the king of Israel. But Judah had, and Benjamin had come, I think it was Benjamin, had come and anointed David to be their king. So David, and here is, when David found out about Saul, he asked God, what do I do? Where do I go? So he's asking God, what now? He didn't know what to do, so he asked God. God said, go to Hebron. So he goes to Hebron. The elders of Judah are there. They make him the king, and that's how all that came about. And then, there's the battle at Gibeon, and it's between Israel and Judah. And things got ugly, and a lot of people were killed unnecessarily, and it was, not a pretty picture. But we're not gonna get into too many details there. Again, that's 2 Samuel chapter 2. If you want to know more, read it. Okay, and then in 2 Samuel chapter 3, Ishbosheth, Abner brought something on himself, and Abner and Ishbosheth aren't getting along very well over a woman. Anyway, so Abner says to David, I'll help you be the king of all of Israel. Let me make you a deal you can't refuse. So he sends a message to David and offers to help him get the whole kingdom. And he joins David, but he's then killed by Joab. And then mourned by David. Next chapter. Is chapter 4, Ishbosheth is murdered. Ishbosheth, remember, was the king of Israel. Some guys go in to his place and kills him in his bed. And he goes to tell David. And he tells David that he killed Ishbosheth, his enemy. What do you think David did? He said, you killed a righteous man in his bed? Kill him. And it was the end of that guy. Same thing. So David avenged Ishbosheth. And then David, in the next chapter, 2 Samuel chapter 5, David becomes king of all Israel, and he defeats the Philistines twice in that chapter. So this is interesting. And in that, let's go there. You got your Bibles? Go to 2 Samuel chapter 5. It's the last 7 verses or so. Well, actually, I'll do it this way. It's faster. Oh, I got it right here. And it would take me about, once I find my Bible here, I thought it was on the top. Okay. Come on. Fat fingers, sorry. Okay, 2 Samuel chapter 5, near the end. Okay, there's some other things that happened. Was 5? 5. Verse 22. Philistines came up again, spread them. Go back. Verse 17, sorry. When the Philistines heard that they had anointed David king over Israel, all the Philistines came up to seek David, and David heard of it and went down to the hold. And the Philistines also came and spread themselves in the valley of Rephaim. And David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I go up to the Philistines? Wilt thou deliver them into my hand? And the Lord said unto David, go up, for I will doubtless deliver the Philistines into the hand. And David came to Baal Perazim, and David smote them there, and said, the Lord hath broken forth upon mine enemies before me, as the breach of waters. Therefore he called the name of the place Baal Perazim. Perazim must have to do with breach. Baal is a Philistine god. And there they left their images. In other words, they left their idols when they bailed. And David and his men burnt them. And the Philistines came up yet again and spread themselves in the valley of Rephaim. And when David inquired of the Lord, again, he goes to the Lord. He says, and the Lord says, thou shalt not go up, but. Now the Lord has given him specific directions. Fetch a compass behind them and come upon them over against the mulberry trees. I love mulberries. I don't know why, but this is one of my favorite battles because it's got mulberries in it. and he says, and then let it be. And, you know, God's just, I don't know. God's amazing. I'm not sure why, but God says this. He says, okay, it'll be when you hear the sound of a going in the top of the mulberry trees, when the wind is blowing around the top of the mulberry trees, then you attack. You bestir yourself, for then the Lord shall go out before thee to smite the host of the Philistines. So he's telling them, wait until the wind rustles through the mulberry trees, then go. So get around behind them, by the mulberry trees, wait until I send some wind, and then attack. I don't know. I'm not sure if there's any, I don't know, Pastor, any spiritual thing about mulberry trees that you know about? Okay. Anyway, it says, so, and David did so, and the Lord had commanded him, and he smote the Philistines from Geba until they come down to Gazer. That's like 12 miles. He chased these guys for 12 miles. But I want you to note, every time he's asking the Lord, has he done this before? Why, yes, he has. He's asked the Lord a lot of times what he should do, where he should go, whatever. All right. Sorry, checking the time. All right, got a little time. Not enough. So, okay. Next chapter. The ark comes to Jerusalem. Uzzah dies because he touched the ark. You all know that story? And so the ark, David's afraid to bring the ark into Jerusalem, so it stays where Uzzah died for a few months, and the place is getting blessed. So David says, okay, bring it. And this time he does it the right way, and he gets the priests instead of bringing it on a cart, which, you know, the oxen stumbled, and Uzzah steadied it to stop it from falling. And he's not a priest; he's not supposed to touch the ark, so he died. God killed him, and so David finally brings the ark to Jerusalem, and he's celebrating, and his wife, Michal, or whatever, Michal. I'm good at spelling, not as good at pronouncing. She gets on his case saying, wasn't the king of Israel glorious today, dancing like the I don't know, he calls it foolish man or something like that. And and David admonishes her, and that's it. She actually dies childless as a result of her pride, I guess. That's what I'd call it anyway. So that brings us to 2 Samuel chapter 7. In this one, David is not allowed to build the temple. Why? He's a man of war. God says, you're not allowed. Your son will do it, but not you. But in the same chapter, after that, he makes a covenant with David. And, the whole world's going to be blessed because of, through David, and his line will go on forever. And of course it does, because his line is Jesus Christ. So yes, David's line goes on forever, and there's going to be a king that lives forever that came from David, and that's Jesus Christ. So, you know the end of the story. It's always good to know the end of the story. As our missionary gal there did. So anyway, and then David in the same chapter offers a prayer of gratitude to God for his blessings, saying, he's not worthy of us. Who am I? You took me from the sheepfold and all that kind of stuff, and but you're making all these great promises to me. And he said, Lord, do what you say. That'll be great. And he offers a prayer of gratitude to the Lord. And that finishes off that chapter. And the next chapter, David has a ton of victories over all. He's just solidifying the Israeli border. Is that familiar? Anyway, he's going out and taking care of things. Take care of the Moabites, the Ammonites, the whateverites. And nobody else is winning except for David in the whole chapter. And then it gives a list of his officials, who's the priest, who's what in his cabinet, whatever. 2 Samuel chapter 9 is about David and Mephibosheth. Who is Mephibosheth? Jonathan's son. Who's Jonathan? We covered that. Saul's son. And David's best friend. So David, in order to honor his friend, takes in Mephibosheth, who may have thought that he was going to be killed because, that's what they do. You take over as king, you kill the old king's family. Not David. He brings him in and he says, you're going to eat at my table, and I'm appointing this guy, Ziba, remember that name. He's going to take care of your affairs because Mephibosheth was crippled. So Mephibosheth David gave Mephibosheth all of Saul's lands and stuff. And then said, but you can't do it because you're crippled. You're going to eat at my table, and I'm going to put this guy, Ziba, in charge of all your stuff, and he'll take care of it and give you the profits. So that's how David honored his friend Jonathan. Next. There's more battles, this time with Ammon and Syria. And in this case, David was helped by a fellow by the name of Nahash. And so he sends some envoys to Nahash to say, you help me, I want to help you. He's trying to set up a, good relations, trade relations, whatever, I don't know, with Nahash, who is an Ammonite, the king of the Ammonites. Well, but his son is now in his place. So he knows that Nahash died, so he sends an envoy to honor Nahash and to tell him, we want to still be friends with you guys. But his son's advisor, and I don't think I put down in my notes the son's name, but the new king of Ammon, his advisors tell him, you think David's sending these guys to honor your dad? They're spying on you. So they shaved up half their beards and cut off their coats and whatever to shame them and then sent them back. That's what started the battle. So the Ammonites called for the Syrians to help them, and it doesn't work out very good for Ammon and Syria. And David wins, they lose, and then that's it. And now, 2 Samuel chapter 11. I'm sure you all know this one. When I tell you who's in it, David, Bathsheba, Uriah. Those names sound familiar? Who's Uriah? What's that? I still didn't hear it. Oh, Bathsheba's husband, yes. And he's in the army. And, David sees Bathsheba bathing on a roof. And as Pastor pointed out, at least in a couple of times, he was supposed to be out there doing battle with the kings, because this is the time of the year when kings do battle. And David didn't go this time. He gets himself into a world of hurt. And from here on, it starts going downhill, as you will see. So, yes. Yes. Yeah. So I wasn't. So I wasn't reading 2 Samuel chapter 10. I was reading the news. I'm sorry. Yeah. There's nothing new under the sun. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh my word. Thanks for that. That's some things never change, especially fallen man. Okay. Chapter 12, we all know, all right, for anybody who doesn't know what happened with David and Bathsheba, David commits adultery with Bathsheba. She gets pregnant. David tries to get Uriah to come home and lie with her so he can say it's his kid, it was Uriah's kid, not David's. Doesn't work out the way he planned. So he sends a note to Joab and tells him, put Uriah in the front of the battle. And when everything gets hot, back off and leave him alone. And let him get killed. And that's exactly what happens. So David murders Uriah. Not his most glorious hour. So, I guess the takeaway I want you to get from that is David a perfect man? No. Well, depends on your definition of perfect, okay? Because the Bible calls David perfect in a lot of places when it says, he wasn't perfect like David. This king wasn't perfect like David. This king wasn't perfect like David. A lot of kings get compared to David. But in that case, as a pastor, what's perfect mean biblically? Yeah, mature. Not the same definition that we have of perfect, because I wouldn't call David perfect. But he is a man after God's own heart, and we'll get more into that. Okay, so God sends Nathan to rebuke David. Nathan gets the whole scoop. He gives David a story saying, this guy had a sheep, and he had only one sheep, and he treated it like one of his own children, and his neighbor had 100 sheep, but his neighbor had a visitor come, and instead of killing one of his sheep, he took the one of his neighbor's sheep, who only had one sheep, killed it to feed his guy. And David says, that guy's going to die. And what does Nathan tell him? Thou art the man. And David, he understood what was going on. And David, what's his reaction? Let's look at it. It is in 2 Samuel chapter, Chapter 12. Oh, man. There it is. Verse 7. 12 verse 7. 2 Samuel 12 verse 7. Nathan said to David, thou art the man. Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I anointed thee king over Israel, and I delivered thee out of the hand of Saul, and I gave thee thy master's house, and thy master's wives into thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel and Judah, and if had that been too little, I moreover would have given thee such things. Wherefore hast thou despised the commandment of the Lord, to do evil in his sight? Thou hast killed Uriah the Hittite with a sword, and hast taken his wife to be thy wife, and hast slain him with the sword of the children of Ammon. And then he gets some bad news. The sword will not depart from the house, because thou hast despised me, and hast taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be thy wife. Thus saith the Lord, behold, I will raise up evil against thee out of thine own house. It's going to happen in the next few chapters. And I will take thy wives before thine eyes and give them unto thy neighbor, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of this son. For you did it secretly. What David did, he was trying to be sneaky about it and get away with something. And God said, I'm not doing this in secret. This is going to be open. You're going to get punished, and it's going to be in the open. And his reaction is right here in verse 13. And David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said unto David, the Lord also hath put away thy sin. Thou shalt not die. However, because of this deed that thou hast given great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme, the child that is born unto thee shall surely die. So the child is going to die. Bathsheba's child will die. And that happens, and you all know the story of how that happens. What is David doing when the child is born? Yeah, he's fasting and praying for the child. And as soon as the child dies, then he gets up and he eats, and he's going about his business, and the servants are going, what? What? Well, the child was alive, you're fasting, and now he's dead. and you're eating. That's not how things are normally done. And David says, hey, who knew? While the child was yet alive, I had a chance. Maybe God would be merciful and spare him. So I fasted and prayed. But now the child is dead, what am I going to do about it? And then he says something that has been of great comfort to me and many other people. It says, I shall go to him, but he shall not come to me. So where did that baby go? Where did David go? The baby went to heaven. David went to see him. And that's what he says. I'm going to go to him, but he's not coming to me. And then in the next, well, let's see. Yeah, in the same chapter, excuse me. At the end of chapter 12, Solomon is born of Bathsheba. And then, he captures a town called Rabbah. We won't get into that. And in the next chapter, things are starting to get set up for what God told David is going to start happening. There's a little scenario with Amnon, one of David's sons, Absalom, one of David's sons, and Tamar, one of David's daughters. Anybody know? Can you tell me what happens in this story? Help me out here, come on. Talk to me. I'm getting dry in the mouth here from too much talking. What's that? No, it's not a nice story. Yeah, okay. Well, then I'll talk about it. Okay. Amnon falls in love with Tamar. Got to have her. So he makes all kinds of arrangements to get her to bring him some food. He pretends that he's sick, and he rapes her. And this Tamar is Absalom's sister. And so Absalom is not very happy about that and tells her, don't worry about it, But then, well, I want you to know something. Verse 39 of chapter 13. This is in my notes. I don't want to pass this up because it's the last verse of the chapter, and it says, and the soul of King David longed to go forth unto Absalom, for he was comforted concerning Amnon, the one that Absalom killed, seeing he was dead. His soul longs after Absalom, who just killed Amnon, because Amnon's dead. So what is that all about? Now, this is my reasoning, and based upon that verse, I come to this hypothetical, maybe, conclusion. Amnon's gone. David can't do anything about him. Absalom's alive. Absalom's still got a chance. To me, that's telling me you may have relatives who are not saved, who do bad things like Absalom did, but they're alive. They've still got a chance. Amnon's dead. Whatever his fate is, it's sealed. But Absalom's alive. Maybe David could do something to help Absalom. And you're going to see, if you read through this, because I'm not going to be able to spend as much time as I would like, David tries to help Absalom a lot. Even after Absalom chases him out of Jerusalem. It is just, it's crazy. So, but Absalom flees to Geshur, it's G-E-S-H-U-R. I told you I can spell, I can't pronounce. So he flees, and he's there for 3 years, and in the next chapter, verse 14, he returns to Jerusalem. There's a whole lot of stuff going on with Joab interceding for him, and he sends a gal who makes up a story that Joab tells her to tell the king, and in order to get the king's heart softened toward it. But the king was going to let Absalom come back, and he did come back. But he wasn't allowed to see the king. So David longs after Absalom, but he's not going to let him come and see him because of what he did. So Absalom comes back to Jerusalem, and he's there a couple of years, and he still hasn't seen his dad. So chapter 15, all of this stuff comes to a head, and Absalom conspires to overthrow his father, getting a whole lot of people to come after him, and David has to flee. And Absalom's going, well, he's not there yet, but he's coming to him. The next chapter, there's a scenario. David's fleeing. The guy Ziba, remember I talked about Ziba? Remember that name? Who's Ziba? Come on, we did it tonight. Who's Ziba? What's that? Yeah, he took care of Mephibosheth. He was the guy that was taking care of Mephibosheth's land, which was Saul's land, taking care of it for him because Mephibosheth was a cripple and was eating at David's table. And Ziba comes out and brings a lot of food for David and the guys that are fleeing. Okay? And Mephibosheth stays back in Jerusalem. And Ziba philosophizes that he's hoping to be made king because he's Saul's son. Now that, David's out of Jerusalem, maybe he'll be the king. But anyway, that was conjecture because it didn't come out straight out of Mephibosheth's mouth. It was Ziba. All right, so let's see. Okay, David's flight. Oh yeah, Absalom gets in. Oh, and then there's another guy, Shimei. Shimei curses David and sits up on the hill and David's guys are saying, "Let me go up there and kill that guy. just let's put him out of our misery," because he's up there on the hill cursing David. And David says, "No, maybe God sent him here just to remind me of my sin. So leave him alone." And so they leave him alone. And Shimei is lucky. Yeah, David was there to hold these guys back. Absalom goes into Jerusalem, and he gets himself a couple of counselors, Ahithophel and Hushai. Ahithophel was for Absalom. Hushai was David's friend. But he convinces Absalom that, hey, I'm the counselor for whoever's the king. You're the king, I do it for you. But you're going to find out in the next chapter that Hushai is going to save David's life because Ahithophel is counseling Absalom to get after David before he gets himself set up someplace. And Hushai says, "Dude, you don't want to do that. Not right now." Because, remember, your dad is a man of war. And he's got a whole lot of guys with him who are men of war. And they're mad. And they're looking for somebody to take it out on. You don't want to be that guy. And so Absalom takes Hushai's advice and doesn't go after him. And Hushai sends a couple of the priest's sons. And here's what I want you to see. In 2 Samuel chapter 17, this is where Hushai is saving David's life. And I want you to notice, and where is it? Therefore, and then said Hushai unto Zadok and Abiathar, this is verse 15, 2 Samuel 17, verse 15. Then said Hushai unto Zadok and Abiathar the priests, thus and thus did Ahithophel counsel Absalom and the elders of Israel, and thus have I counseled. Now therefore, send quickly and tell David, saying, lodge not this night in the plains of the wilderness, but speedily pass over, lest the king be swallowed up and all the people that are with him. Now Jonathan and Ahimaaz stayed by in Rogel, for they might not be seen to come and see. In other words, they're trying to be subtle about this thing and not let Absalom's guys know that they're there. And look at this. Verse 17, second half. And a wench went and told them, and they went and told the king. So used a wench. God used a wench. Can God use sinners? Well, this is pre the incarnate Christ. He hasn't really got much to work with, except sinners, okay? So yeah, God can use a sinner, he can use you, he can use me. He used a wench. God can use anybody. And David takes his advice, hits the road. And in the next chapter, there's a war. Absalom gets in there. Absalom gets killed. And David grieves over Absalom, his son, which he had spent so much time trying to help, couldn't get to him. Absalom died in his condition as he was. Where are we at time-wise? All righty. I'm way past time. All right, so we got to get to the point. There's more, but I can't tell you. So here's what I want you to get out of all of this, out of David's life. What made David a man after God's own heart? That's what we started with. That's what we're going to finish with. What made David a man after God's own heart? This is what I have come up with. 1, what was Saul's reaction when Samuel came to him and told him he screwed up? Wasn't my fault. Somebody else made me do it. Whatever. Okay. What was David's reaction when Nathan came to him? It's me. Well, we don't have time, but if you look at Psalm 51, which David wrote after this incident with Bathsheba and Nathan came to him, it's a whole thing. My sin is ever before me, a verse that we all, well, maybe all know, came from there. There's a lot of verses in there, and David was repentant. He was sorry. He repented and turned from his sin. Okay, so that's a big difference between Saul, who got booted out because he wasn't doing the right thing, and David, a man after God's own heart. And I have to finish. So David sought to do things God's way. Every time you turn around, David was asking God, what should I do? Saul was anointed by Samuel to be king, so he wouldn't kill him. Samuel anointed David, showing David God's plan, and David was willing to let God work out his plan. He didn't expect to be made the king right away. He was 40 years old before he became the king. He killed David in his teens, and now he's 40 years old. So he was on the run for a while. And David was willing to do things in God's time. Let go and let God. He avenged Ishbosheth's murder. In becoming king, he asked God where to go. He sought God's will, most of the time anyways. And many, many, many battles, he asked God what to do. What to do when he became the king, or before he became the king, he said, where do I go? What do I do? And God sent him to Hebron. And David, again, always looking to God for his guidance. And in the case of Nabal, he was grateful for God's intervention in stopping him from sinning. All these things add up to, in my mind, what makes David a man after God's own heart. So if you want to be a man after God's own heart, take these things under advisement. And that's all we have time for. I'm not done studying David. I hope you aren't either.